Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of High Minded with McCarter. I'm your host, McCarter. Super excited to have my friend on and someone I admire so much, Julia Bramante. Welcome to the pod.
So great to be on. Really excited for today's conversation.
Me too. We met through our friends Becky and Damon, but she lives in Denver still, which is awesome. But shout out to Becky and Damon. We love you.
Yes, miss you. Hope you're enjoying life on the island.
Yes, we wish you were back in Colorado, but it's okay. But yeah, we had a fun time at their wedding in Malibu. We were having a great time. And then I've also just known how much of a badass she is. And like, she's literally like a chemist, like knows things that I don't know. So I do have, this is her title is, wait, oh my God. Maybe I should just do. Here we go.
Go for it.
I never do this, but I want to get it right.
Okay.
Julia is a dynamic scientist who has established herself as a leader in the field of cannabis testing and reference methods. As the Cannabis and Natural Medicine Sciences Program Manager at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Julia leads method development and validation to advance both routine and novel analytic studies. Wow. That's amazing. There's a whole other paragraph, but I'm not going to read it. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, we don't need to.
Do you want to explain a little bit more like what it says, or just explain more so people can understand what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start out by saying today I'm here on behalf of myself. I have no affiliation, not speaking on behalf of the state government.
This is a personal conversation for entertainment purposes only. She is not here on behalf of the state of Colorado or the Department of Public Health.
Exactly. So we'll leave it there. This is Julia, her personal being.
Just Julia.
But a lot of what we do is some analysis and method development and validation to try to create reference methods to analyze cannabis and now also natural medicines for a variety of different things. So there's a large need for that in the cannabis industry and now the burgeoning natural medicine space. And there hasn't been a lot of precedent to validate methods to the reproducibility standards that exist in other industries. So it's a little bit of research and then a little bit of standardization combined into one is the best way I could describe it. So research and standardization for things like analyzing cannabinoids, pesticides, residual solvents, and then now for natural medicines, tryptamine alkaloids, and the list just expands and continues. So,
whoa, that's so nuts. Yeah. You are so sciencey.
Yes.
It's so cool. I love it.
I'm excited.
Okay, that is amazing. Like, I have so many questions in my brain. I literally don't even know where to start. But I like to usually start with how you were first introduced to cannabis, how old you were, what that experience was like, and then we'll just like move forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe that my first introduction to cannabis was when I was around maybe 14.
Same.
There you go. So, I was, I think, a freshman in high school, and my good friend and I at the time had just been interested in trying cannabis. So we tried it out and, of course, liked it. And
yes,
just went on from there.
Yeah. Where were you living?
So I grew up most of my life in Cleveland. So that was in Cleveland. Yeah.
Wow. Didn't the rivers, weren't the rivers on fire?
Yes, the Cuyahoga River has caught on fire multiple times, mostly due to the pollution that exists in the river. Not while I was living there, to my memory at least, but
that's crazy.
I know it's pretty wild.
Wow.
There's a number of different boating and crew teams in Cleveland, and one of them's named the Burning River crew team. Yeah.
Just adopted that right up. Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
So then how did you know cannabis was for you, and how did you make your way to Colorado?
So I made my way to Colorado in 2010. So I had looked at a number of different colleges around the United States and mostly wanted to either go to school in Colorado or California. Part of that decision, of course, is I did love cannabis, but I also wanted to go to a school with the best education I could get. And also what really landed me in Denver, I think the discerning factor, or one of the main discerning factors, in addition to the more maybe logical, logistical, responsible decisions, was that I loved skiing back then, and I skied a lot. And so I thought it was a good way to continue to do that. Yeah. But it all kind of worked out.
I'm just going to take a little dab.
Yeah, go for it.
So where did you go to college?
So I went to the University of Denver. So
My
I
sister
to
went
there.
there.
Did she? Oh, really? What class did she graduate in? Do you know?
Oh, gosh. Okay, she's 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And I'm 29.
Okay.
And I graduated college in 2017.
Okay, so she's probably 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 2014. So we were probably there at the same time.
Oh my gosh! No way. She was a Tridelt.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you did Greek life.
I did not. No, I was usually sequestered in my lab. So I
Good for you. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I wonder if you guys crossed paths.
I know. I'm sure we did.
It makes me so excited to think about stuff like that.
That's cool.
That's so cool. So was your major chemistry?
Yes, it was. So I started as a biology major, but then I decided to switch it to chemistry. So I did a chemistry major with an American Chemical Society, which usually is abbreviated as ACS accreditation. So it had a lot of focus in math and another science, which for me was biology as well.
Wow, that's so cool. I'm terrible at math. Like, yeah.
I love math. But
oh my gosh, help me.
I can't. I'd love to dive into it.
That's so cool. Wow, I wish I could do that. Like, I feel like we have such opposite brains. It's so funny.
It's interesting. It is. But they're, then they're compatible.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So were you able to study cannabis at DU?
No, back then it wasn't really being implemented into universities yet. So I started school there in 2010, and cannabis or marijuana, as they refer to it legally, and especially at that time, was legalized in 2012. And then the legalization went into mandate in 2014. So the legal industry didn't really exist here until 2014, which is when I graduated.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then what did you do when you graduated? Like, or how did you know what you wanted to do?
Great question. Well, so I was really interested in science from the time I was very young. I think I started doing different research projects when I was around 11 or 12. And then I started working in my first professional research lab when I was 16. And that was more immunology based. So that was still in Cleveland. And then when I moved out here, I worked in a couple of different laboratories, some of which at DU just as a work study. So something to kind of make some money and also get experience while I was getting my degree. That was a microscopy lab.
What does that mean?
So we did high resolution microscopic imaging of cell mitosis. So
when they kill themselves? Wait, no, that's apoptosis.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember all these terms.
Opposite, when they're replicating. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And then kind of around that time, I started working at, Anschutz Medical Campus, part of University of Colorado, Denver. So I got a summer job there working in an HIV research lab. So that was still immunology focused. So in terms of scientific discipline, that was a lot of molecular biology. And then after that, it was actually through my experience there, I decided I wanted to focus more on chemistry. So that's when I switched my major, started studying chemistry, and I began working in an organic synthesis lab. And so in that lab, I was working on synthesizing these types of molecules for application to creating a new target site for tuberculosis vaccines. And then after that, I graduated and I had my degree, but I knew I didn't want to go into big pharma and I didn't want to go into oil and gas, which is a lot of jobs for chemists.
Yeah.
So I kind of took my time and just enjoyed some of my summer after graduating in Colorado and worked some of the jobs I had worked just to get me through college. And through that, I actually ended up being introduced to the first lab I worked in cannabis in Colorado. So that was one of the first compliance private testing labs to open in Colorado to support the industry that had just formed. And so I was really fortunate because I got in when they had just opened their doors. I think I was one of the first 2 employees. And so we had the opportunity to really build the lab from the ground up and then see the industry grow from the very beginning and how everything progressed from that point. So,
Wow. Okay. So I just had a question off of that.
Yeah.
What is your view then about people saying that, like, I mean, people talk a lot of smack on social media, but people say that, like testing and COAs, it's like all bullshit. And like, there's so much basically discrepancies between one lab and another's like sample of the same from the same plant, basically.
Yeah, I can definitely understand there's scrutiny and there's some, I shouldn't say some. There's a lot of issues, and it's very complex, right? It's very complex there, and it's not all just laboratories' faults. I think actually, by and large, laboratories are doing a good job, or most are, but there's a lot of challenges to overcome. So one of the things I alluded to at the beginning was that we don't have reference methods in the industry. We're trying to build towards those, and so that's what really helps establish reproducibility. And
so there's no like standard operating procedures for
there are tons of SOPs. So,
okay.
But
there's no like agreed upon methods.
There are some, but there aren't many. And also with the industry expanding so rapidly, with the types of compounds that need to be included in panels and the types of products that are tested, it becomes more difficult to reproduce results across laboratories. But I do want to maintain, I think that laboratories actually are overall doing a really good job. And I've seen some studies recently that have shown when they look at sending standardized samples between different laboratories, even across different states, they find that they are actually similar in what they're detecting overall. Good. So they've done that, obviously not with actual cannabis from the studies I've seen, but with some standards. So some of the complexities lie in the sampling program in each state. So sampling is a huge aspect of the test result you receive. Right. If there isn't really homogeneous sampling or representative sampling of an overall batch, then there's going to be variability in test results no matter what. So that's one area that I think really needs to be optimized. Again, I think there's some differences in some of the methodologies that are adopted, but for a lot of the major tests, they are fairly similar. Actually, I haven't seen a lot of evidence to show that's the main issue unless there's nefarious activity happening, right? So,
Can you describe what you mean by nefarious activity?
Sure. So this is also out there. I'm sure people can read about it, but there are various incentives for cultivators and manufacturers to want to have, let's say, cultivators, higher THC percentages. So then maybe some laboratories will be incentivized to want to do what they can to give the highest result possible. So that's obviously going to skew things and then create some differences.
Are you saying there's money?
Money has an impact. Money's impacting integrity. Shocking. Shocking. So there's cases like that too, of course, that plays into it. So again, right. Very complex.
You just got to take everything with a grain of salt.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
So then when did you start working for the state or like this Department of Public Health?
So I started working there, it's hard to believe, but about 7 years ago now. So
that's crazy. Yeah. That's when I entered. When I moved to Colorado and
really?
entered the cannabis industry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but it has.
Yes.
So.
Well, how did you decide you wanted to make the shift from private to public, I guess?
So at the time I had known that they had written into legislation that there needed to be the establishment of a cannabis reference laboratory. And so I saw it as an opportunity to try to do some more, like I've described, kind of research and method development into creating reference methods and more consistent testing, but also to explore what types of testing are relevant, more than you can do in a routine compliance testing lab. Because typically, of course, the nature of the testing there is high volume, high throughput. You want to be able to give the most accurate result possible, but also test the most samples possible to deliver good results to clients. So ends up being some level of method development that goes into it.
They don't really have time.
Yeah, they don't have as much time. Exactly. You want to get something.
How would you have time for that?
Yeah, that meets, the performance criteria it needs to meet, but then can be adopted and you can start testing so that you can provide that service. Yeah.
So do you talk with other legal states that have reference laboratories as well? How are you guys working together to make...
Yeah, we do.
These methods.
It's a great question. So there's a number of different professional organizations that work on creating standards and guidelines for method development and also just for general methods in the industry. So some of those organizations are AOAC, the American Chemical Society, ACS. We have a cannabis chemistry subdivision that I've been a part of for a number of years there. And so that one really focuses on creating a network and bringing in scientists from around the world, not just the US, to present at conferences that they hold twice a year. And a lot of them are presenting leading research into various aspects of cannabis. And there's some other organizations like ASTM also developing standards for certain types of tests. So there are organizations working on that. In addition to that, there's another organization that was more recently formed called CANRA. So it's the Cannabis Regulators Association. And so that's an organization that's specifically focused on cannabis regulators across different states. And so there's representatives from all different facets of regulation in different states. So that can range from their legal teams to their licensing teams to their departments of public health to their scientific teams, et cetera. And so the goal of that organization, among other things, is to create more lines of communication between different states and to try to help states support each other and create more harmonious approaches to the industry overall.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what type of like methods are you working on right now or trying to develop, I guess?
Well, there's a lot. So it's, like I said, it's always expanding and we're always trying to optimize even pre-existing methodologies. But right now, some big...
Wait, sorry. Can you give an example of pre-existing ones first
sure.
and then the ones you're developing?
So a good example would be cannabinoids, right? So testing for a cannabinoid profile. That's the first analysis that was required back in 2014. And back then, there were just 5 cannabinoids that were required to be tested.
Wow.
So that was CBDA, CBD, CBN, THCA, and THC. Now, of course, even if there's only 5 required or 5 and it's some additional THC isomers required now, laboratories typically are offering panels of 15 to 20 different cannabinoids for their clients so that things like CBGA and CBGA that are really relevant are still included. But also now with a lot of the what they're calling the intoxicating hemp cannabinoid industry that I can dive into.
We got to get into that.
We will dive into that. That task of testing for cannabinoids is becoming more and more, I'd say, interesting and also expansive. Another would be that Colorado started with a pesticide list of, I believe it was 13 pesticides, 15 compounds total, if you include the isomers in the panel. And now there's over 100 that are required for analysis. So you may create a base method and then have to add in analytes and expand as the industry matures. And we decide that there's other kind of relevant priorities to be included. So in Colorado right now, there's been a lot of focus on expanding the pesticides panel to include over 100 pesticides. Also now, though, with Senate Bill 23-271, that's the intoxicating hemp cannabinoid bill, there's a whole list of different, what they're calling semi-synthetic cannabinoids or SSCs that have to be included. And for our laboratory, we're also looking at some of the other potential byproducts or substituted isomers or other types of things that may occur, substituted cannabinoids or other compounds that may result from the synthetic process of converting CBD into delta 9 or delta 8 THC.
Yes, I don't totally understand that. Can you explain a little bit more how people are doing that?
Yeah, a little bit. So to my knowledge, and again, I am not deeply in the industry at this point, so there may be some specifics that I'm not even privy to. But in general, to my knowledge, there was a lot of excess hemp and CBD in general. Yes, exactly. So during that time, there was a lot of CBD isolate, so pure CBD essentially, that was being sold for very cheap. And because of that, then people decided, okay, well, let's make a value-added product out of this. We can take pure CBD and through an acid catalyzed ring closer synthesis, convert it into delta 8 THC.
Sorry, I don't even know what you just said.
So essentially, you're able to take the compound CBD and through what's actually not even the most complex reaction, convert it into delta 8 THC and even delta 9 THC. But when you do that, there are some more minor constituents, so some minor compounds that are created in the process. And you, even though you think you're completely converting and getting pure delta 9 THC or pure delta 8 THC. The reality is there are other compounds that result in that process. And they're much more difficult to separate and then detect on the methodologies that are currently in place because they are so closely related.
Wow.
So that's a big focus at the moment, and trying to just get ahead of that and anticipate what else may come down the line from that process.
So just to complete the like full circle, so then people are selling that product that they got from CBD, but they changed into THC. They're then selling it on the market as delta 8 or delta 9, but it's hemp derived.
Exactly.
So that's when it's the, what are they calling them?
Semi-synthetic cannabinoids.
Semi-synthetic cannabinoids. And it's the what is it? Hemp intoxicating?
Intoxicating hemp cannabinoids.
Intoxicating hemp cannabinoids. Wow. There's so many language and like phrases I need to add to my vocabulary.
Exactly. And so as a part of that, they are interpreting that to be a hemp product, a lot of people who are creating those products. And so then they're saying, well, this doesn't need to go through the legal marijuana space, so we're going to sell it.
Because under the Farm Bill of 2018, they're saying we can legally sell this because it had, at the original time, it had below, what is it, 0.3% THC.
So then they're selling it in any store, in gas stations, and
with no regulation.
Yeah, so it's not subjected to testing. And so Colorado wanted to try to create a way for companies to be able to make these types of products, but sell them in a safe manner. So that's where that Senate Bill 23-271 came into place. They are trying to create a regulatory framework that allows companies to do this while still testing for the cannabinoids that may be active in the product and also any other contaminants.
So what do you think of this whole, other type of industry coming out of it? And then also with that, the products that people are making with the THCA, like THCA flower and stuff,
I would say personally, it concerns me a little bit because we don't know very much about what is being created. There isn't a really strong regulatory infrastructure, even understanding of what are the main, standards that need to be adhered to for a lot of companies. And I think a lot of companies may just not be aware of a lot of these things or aware of a lot of risks. So I think some of what's coming out is maybe just reckless, where people don't realize the hazards they may be creating, not just through the products they're creating, but through the synthesis and extraction labs that they're opening. But also we don't know a lot about the products or the other contaminants that are coming out with them. And so,
and how our body, how they'll impact our bodies in 5, 10, 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't have data on that, right? We have more information on what comes from consuming, just regular cannabis, because people have been doing that for a very long time.
Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years.
But with some of these more synthetic compounds, we don't know that.
Yeah.
But I've heard other people argue that they don't think it should be problematic and it's not concerning to them. But my personal stance is
other chemists.
Chemists, yeah. Okay. But my personal opinion on it is I'm a little more apprehensive.
Yeah, totally. I agree. We don't know what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then what about the THCA products that people are releasing?
So can you tell me a little bit more about those? Because I don't even know if I'm very familiar with
So apparently it's kind of the thing where it's under, I don't know if it's in illegal states or states that don't have a legal market.
Okay.
Where they are, I guess, selling THCA flower that was hemp derived, I guess, in some way. I don't actually know. I'm trying to figure out what is happening. Because then, this, I guess the science, you can confirm, is that, when THCA is heated, it turns into THC.
Yes. Yeah. So it's decarboxylated.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So then they're saying, oh, well, you're actually just smoking regular THC, but it's the loophole kind of thing.
So they're essentially just selling THCA, regular flower, and just saying that because it hasn't been decarboxylated, it doesn't apply to the 0.3%.
Yeah.
Interesting, because usually it's the total THC in the product that's supposed to be calculated. So total THC is calculated by taking
both of them,
the decarboxylated version, and then you multiply the amount of THCA by 0.877 to account for the loss of the carboxylic acid tail.
Whoa.
And add that into delta 9 THC, and then you get your total THC. But now total THC in Colorado includes some other isomers too, like exo THC, delta 10 THC, etc.
Whoa. Oh my God. Okay.
It's a lot.
Yes. Wait, and what's up with the delta 10?
So delta 10 is another cannabinoid isomer that can now be synthesized and put into these products along with some of the others you just named. So, the list goes on from there.
So many.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Wow. Yeah. Does it scare you? Like, does it scare the Department of Public Health? Like, oh my God, we've opened like this can of worms that's like never ending now.
I can't speak for the Department of Public Health, but
right. Oh my God. Yes. Just you personally.
Oh no. Like I said, I think it does concern me personally a little bit. But I think it's good that we are putting resources into trying to test for the various different compounds that are being made, figure out what is even being created in products. That's one of our main goals, and to really just get a better understanding of it. I think maybe that's one of the silver linings on it, is that there are resources being put into trying to figure out what is relevant to be tested, what might be concerning, what might not be, and to move forward from there.
So what else? Do you know anything else about the bill that they're trying to pass?
So which bill? The 271? That passed. Yeah. So that passed last year.
No, not the Natural Medicines Health Act. The one that with the, oh my gosh.
The cannabinoids, the semi-synthetic
Yes, the semi-synthetic.
Yes, that also passed last year.
Oh.
They both did.
Oh my gosh, they both did.
In the same legislative session, yeah.
Okay, so then what does that mean? Because like there's brands that try to work with me a lot of the time that are Delta 8 brands. And like, so I've one time gotten so they sent me product and stuff to then like promote. And then I've one time gotten a letter that was like, you didn't pay like the right taxes on this like product or something. And I was like, what?
Oh, did you get it from them or from the state?
I got it from the state.
Yeah. So because that bill passed, Delta 8 THC companies, or these intoxicating hemp cannabinoid companies, are supposed to be going through now this legal route of selling those products. So they're supposed to be tested.
Wow.
And then they are supposed to be paying, I believe, certain licensing fees. I'm not sure. I have to check at what stage in the rulemaking process that bill is in. I believe rulemaking for the overall infrastructure is going to start later this year, or potentially will start later this year.
Wow.
But there is testing that's supposed to be involved. And I'm assuming maybe, taxes are supposed to be paid on those products.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So, I don't know. Oh my gosh. There's just so much.
We've just addressed one. And that's just one test.
Oh my God. There's so much. Okay. So then.
Actually, I could speak. Okay. So some of the other concerns with it isn't really just the compounds. It's also the process that is being used to create those compounds. So extractors are often using different types of reagents or solvents that aren't necessarily permitted in the legal like marijuana space. And so
like what?
One example would be dichloromethane. Another would be green yard reagents, which can actually be really dangerous when you're using them in a laboratory if they aren't being handled properly. I'd say those are two of the main ones.
Okay. Yeah. That's crazy. Like, where do they get these people get these chemicals?
So a lot of those are commonly used in chemical analysis, chemical synthesis. So they're available at typical chemical suppliers that supply other laboratories and other industries. Yeah.
I was like, is this like a Breaking Bad situation where they have to like go get the methylamine? That's literally what I pictured.
I mean, I'm not sure the routes that they're going to get.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wait, but you were going to say something else too.
That was about it.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Well, I have questions about the Natural Medicine Health Act. Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Yes, I am excited about that, obviously, because I am a personal user and grower of psilocybin and make my own capsules and then gift them to friends sometimes. So This is very exciting.
Yes.
But do you know how that industry is forming? Because I know that, like, obviously you said we know the bill was passed last year. I covered it on the podcast a little bit. But there's like a committee formed, and I don't know, what stage are we at? And like, do you think that there would ever be dispensaries, or is it going to be like clinics? And I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, great question. So right now, since it passed, like you said, there's an advisory committee that's been established in conjunction with it. There's also been a number of different stakeholder engagement sessions and listening sessions that have been held by the Department of Revenue. So they're partially responsible for various different aspects of the bill. So if anyone is interested in getting involved in trying to have their input received and their voices heard and how that industry is shaping, I really encourage you to attend those because they're open to the public.
Nice.
I know it's sometimes easy to get really jaded and feel like we have no impact on politics or what's happening, which, you know, in some aspects may be true, but locally, and especially with regard to things like this, giving feedback in those sessions really does have an impact and does get taken into consideration. So
I need to look into that. I need to
yes.
go to a session.
Yes, I can show you the website where they post the information about scheduling for all that. So they are at the stage right now, I believe, where they're holding some stakeholder sessions and they're preparing to start the rulemaking process. So that's when the rules are actually drafted to support the bill in creating this industry. And so as it's been written in the bill right now, things are just being established as health clinics, not really something like a dispensary. And as far as I've heard, I think that is being maintained, but we'll have to see what comes out. Yeah.
And do you think it'll be pretty pricey?
That's a great question.
I'm not sure. To like get treatment.
That's a great question. I would assume there will be some cost associated with it. I think it is encouraging that part of the bill is that individuals are allowed to cultivate their own psilocybin products and then share those or gift them. I think that might help potentially with treatment if anyone's trying to access it and they don't want to have to spend too much money. But I think for the health clinics, because they will have some overhead and licensing, but also then they will have to adhere to certain standards, there will probably be more cost associated with it, I would assume. But I have no idea what that infrastructure will look like at this point.
Are you going to have to start testing all these different things?
So as part of that bill, the Cannabis and Natural Medicine Sciences program of the state was identified to need to assist in doing some testing to establish what is relevant to be required for analysis. There's also going to be laboratories that are required to be certified to test for natural medicine, just like there is for cannabis. So so there will be involvement. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And what about like the studies we kind of touched on that, like, we don't really know the impacts of like a lot of these things and even the different cannabinoids we were talking about, like, on the human body. So like, you're not at all part of that?
No, I'm not at all a part of clinical research or trials or any of that.
You're just like merely testing.
Yeah. So in the science world, we'd call it more analytical chemistry, microbiology based. Yeah. Not clinical analysis.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
But hopefully there will be more of that to come from passing these bills because it should provide the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
What's your kind of goal for, like, I guess, your career, or like where you're headed?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So a lot of the reason I got into science and then took the paths I did along the way was because I've been interested in medicine and finding more, I think, holistic but still effective medicine therapies. I've been pretty passionate about that. That's part of what kind of led me into chemistry. It's a longer story, but then when I got involved in the cannabis space, that's a lot of what drove my motivation into it. And I'd say that's still one of my driving motivations now. I really am passionate about that, and I hope that I can continue to help support, I guess, the industries to give people access to various different medicines. With the natural medicine bill, I guess this is actually a tangent, not directly related to that question,
okay.
but something I wanted to bring up. With that, I think it's really important for us to also be engaging with the different indigenous communities whose medicines are being incorporated into that legislation and then now put out into these industries. I'm a big advocate of that as well. And I think there is the opportunity right now to hopefully have companies really actively communicate and try to collaborate and not just extract and only have money on the forefront of their minds. That may be a naive optimism, but there is really truly the opportunity to do that at this point. So I am hoping this could be a bit of a turning point for that. And with that, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it would look like to have peyote centers that weren't indigenous led. That to me personally doesn't seem very aligned or like something I personally would support, but it might go that direction. So
yeah, it gets really sticky.
It does. That's a whole other conversation, but maybe.
Oh, yes. And maybe when things start to like roll out too, we can like follow up and stuff.
Yeah, that would be good.
But yeah, wait, sorry. Well, continuing more on your journey, like where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, so I see myself continuing doing more of what I'm doing now. I really hope that with the expansion of these various different industries, we can continue to advance more studies and really create more standards for the industry. I would love to support kind of engaging industry with laboratories to have more of a harmonious relationship so that it doesn't feel like they're pitted against one another or there's a lot of complaints. It's truly, in most other industries, you would ideally be working symbiotically. I think that just with the stage of maturation of the industry, we're not there yet, but we can get there. And I hope I can help directly contribute to that by just helping create reference methods, helping educate on how to reliably test products, also how to manage certain things in various different aspects of people's grows or production facilities so that they can be really confident in their own kind of quality control. Although I know there's a lot of companies doing a really great job of that. I'm not trying to say they aren't, but to really just keep that conversation open again between laboratories and companies so they can work together to build those things out rather than feel like they're at odds or working, I don't know what the right word for there is.
Just like not totally on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I've talked about in other podcast episodes, especially with like air quality issues. And for outdoor cannabis, it can be a really big issue with passing testing, especially when there's wildfires. And I just know that people have gotten like fucked basically from like there being really poor air quality. And then the testing coming back being like, oh, you have too much, I don't know, whatever, anything. And then it's like, okay, that's literally the air we're breathing though.
So their harvest gets contaminated with whatever contaminants are in the air. That's difficult, right? I guess there has to be some mitigation techniques. I know that there's a lot of states looking into, what relevant contaminants there are to be tested. I know Colorado just put out a really useful tool where they outlined all of the required tests in the cannabis space and then put into the document also where those requirements were derived, what studies they came from, why they were put into regulation. So I think that's helpful for people to understand why we test for certain things and how products that we consume every day are tested or controlled in other industries that we don't even really realize. But I think it's probably a matter of looking into that and also just whatever mitigation techniques there can be. But that is outside of my realm of expertise. I wish I could help more.
That's okay. And what do you think about those like big machines people are using to like put all their flour through now? Like it's like a big X-ray machine. What are they
is it gamma radiation?
I think maybe
to cut down on microbial contamination.
Yeah, they basically everyone now just like puts all their stuff through this big thing.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's either UV or gamma radiation, so that's able to probably mitigate the microbial contamination in a product. But I don't know how necessary or not that is.
Okay.
You know? 'Cause I've definitely seen in years and years of testing, even before I was at the state, cultivation facilities that were able to maintain passing microbial results without adulterating their products or really doing anything like that, just by controlling the environment. But
Yeah.
I also don't know how that may have changed over the past 7 years or what other obstacles there could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So interesting.
or what's relevant. I know a lot of people get really kind of polarized about like total yeast and mold count testing and if that's really necessary, if it's not, you know, what is the relevant level, et cetera. So I know those conversations continue to happen, and yeah, it's just a part of it. Yeah.
And how do you decide like for like fertilizers and nutrients, like what can be used, I guess?
That's a great question as well. I don't know as much about that. But
do you have to test for them? Like all these different.
So in my laboratory, we don't test that. I don't think that's required to be analyzed in any compliance testing lab. But if I were a cultivator, I would absolutely test any of my inputs into my production scheme. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a good quality practice. So you want to make sure wherever you're deriving your nutrients, wherever you're deriving your fertilizer, you're testing before introducing that, just to make sure there's nothing you're not expecting, and then hopefully creating a relationship with a supplier so that you can have more reliable source.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know Tim McCormick?
I do not.
Okay. I've had him on the podcast a couple times. He has his own nutrient fertilizer company, but it's all carbon-based organic cannabis nutrients, and it's based in Denver.
Okay.
Excuse me. I had him on a couple times. He's so knowledgeable. He basically got me to buy all organic from his like knowledge about fertilizers and stuff being used in America and like produce. So with that, like, what's your view on like organic, not organic, different types of fertilizers, like just from what you know about like chemical compounds?
That's a great question. I don't know much about the fertilizer and nutrient industry, but I would assume, so does he have an organic certification or, okay, then he would have to go through quite a bit of testing and also production control verification to show that he is producing things in a way that it abides by organic standards, which is good.
But do you see a big difference in testing between like
those
organic or like clean green certified cannabis versus like corporate cannabis?
I wouldn't know anymore because I don't see different companies' products coming through
like
as
day
much
after
anymore.
day.
Previously I saw more of that, but not any longer.
So what's like a day like when you go to work?
I go to work. Well, these days I'm not in the lab very much anymore. Mostly, it's okay. That's how it goes. But a day in the life, we typically will do quite a bit of literature research and also kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Literature research, and then formulation of different study designs to implement studies in the laboratory to carry out method validation, which is basically a process of showing that your method is able to detect these various different compounds or to screen for thousands of different compounds and be able to identify contaminants to a certain degree of confidence. There's a number of different analysts that work in the laboratory, also statistical data analysts. So on one side, there's laboratory analysts actually testing samples, running instrumentation, bringing the test results back, analyzing them, reporting them out. There's also statistical data analysts that will run various different statistical analyses and studies on our data that we're producing to show if there's any trends in a certain way, to also help us calculate certain things relevant to testing, like measurement uncertainty, to show what uncertainty is associated with a given result that's provided.
Whoa.
There's a lot that goes into it. And then I just try to help keep those initiatives moving as best I can. So, yeah.
Wow, that's such an admirable job. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, well, thank you. It's honestly, I feel very fortunate because it's something I'm really passionate about and have been and kind of landed in somewhat naturally. And that's really valuable to me. And I
Yeah.
think it can be very difficult and trying at times, but I, at the end of the day, can be grateful that I do enjoy what I do and it has impact. And that's something I actually really appreciate about the cannabis and now natural medicine space is because they're newer, we really do have a lot of impact on what's going on in real time.
Cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And then also something I like to encourage with being in the sciences and even in what we're doing, trying to help create standards is to be a good scientist. I always say you have to be creative. There's a lot of creativity that goes into it. So whenever I get stuck doing a lot of the mundane tasks, I try to pull back and touch into that creative side of science again, which keeps me going.
Yeah. And this is kind of a weird question, but are you like drug tested? Are you allowed to consume cannabis while working for
This was a whole ordeal for a while.
So the Department of Public Health.
Yes. So it's not only dictated by the state overall. Drug testing, I guess, requirements are also dictated by different departments within the state and also different job duties. So if you're a driver for CDOT, you're probably going to have to get drug tested to get a job, and there might be routine screening. I have no idea, but that would be my assumption. And so there was a point in time where for the state public health laboratory, there was drug testing required to be hired into a position, and that did include cannabis. So that was a point of contention for quite some time. But I think I have received notice that is no longer required, which I think is really important. But I will say that in order to work in a laboratory and operate, heavy complex machinery, oftentimes there are strict standards against impairment, which is appropriate. So, and that's probably a whole other podcast is determining impairment.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. Cause I just actually did a campaign with the Colorado Department of Transportation on not driving high.
Oh yeah. That's great.
That's yes. Just, which I think is important. Yeah. Anything where you're just mitigating risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Is important. But, I've gotten a lot of hate on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it is. It's a very controversial topic.
I've gotten
I hesitated to even say that, but
much hate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that, although cannabis is a medicine, just like other pharmaceuticals, it can be intoxicating. Like there's a label on some of my depression medicine that's like, don't drink alcohol with this. Like, don't try, whatever, operate heavy machinery.
Some cold medicine I may take and decide I shouldn't be driving because I'm so drowsy, right? Yeah.
So true.
It's just really difficult. I think that's maybe part of the contention that comes up with cannabis is it's really difficult to determine what impairment is for each individual.
Yes.
What might be impairing as a dose for one individual may be perfectly fine for someone else.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there will be a lot of maybe research into that coming up soon.
Yes, totally. But yeah, it is. It's definitely my medicine, but I don't want to abuse it, and I want to educate, myself and others properly on it so that we can, fully understand it.
Absolutely.
And I do think it could become an even more impactful medicine, in terms of treating cancer and other, I don't know, CBD is great for inflammation and I have this medical reference card that I always keep. So now I'm curious what you think of it. But it has all of the cannabinoids and then what they do for you.
Oh, this is a great graphic. I like this.
It's from Gold Leaf. They're pretty good. And then there's also a terpene one that says linalool can help relieve anxiety.
Right. Yeah. Because of course, especially with cannabis flower or extracts that have the terpenes in them as well.
Yeah.
There's just as much impact in many ways from the terpenes as the cannabinoids are in conjunction with each other.
Yeah. So do you see cannabis medicine, going even farther to maybe have tablets or pills for all of these things,
I think so. I think
from your, I don't know.
I definitely think we could see things go that way. I know for myself, one of my most, I guess, medicinal uses of cannabis is PMS, which I never even thought of when I was younger, but it's incredibly helpful for that. So things like that where there's even medical benefits or treatments that aren't talked about all the time, like cancer, that I'm sure there will be
Yes.
research trials done in the near future.
Here it
to
is.
determine.
Kills cancer cells.
There you go.
CBDA and CBGV.
Interesting. Yeah, inhibits tumor cell growth. Did they pull these from different studies?
And that's what I want to like. I don't know. I should probably contact them. What does it say at the bottom?
Right here.
Oh, it says all information available on their website. So they might have more, maybe like studies or something. But yeah, I always look at this and I'm like, okay, so why aren't we using it for that?
Yeah, I like that. I'll definitely check them out. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it too.
Perfect.
But it's just super interesting. And I think cannabis and other natural medicines, like, I mean, we didn't talk that much about psilocybin, but I am obsessed with Paul Stamets. And he has said, like, I mean, now there's like some research coming out, but that psilocybin will stimulate nerve growth.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see if we're able to start actually characterizing how.
Yeah. And maybe with the help of like lion's mane and like some other stuff, although like lion's mane is legal. But
yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just very, very excited for what's to come.
Yeah, likewise.
Last question. What do you think about the rescheduling?
So I'm very optimistic that will hopefully make it so that we can start doing more actual clinical research trials like we've just discussed and research in general. I think it will make it more available to various different research groups around the country to begin doing that. So that would be, I think, the best thing to come from it.
Woo! It's very exciting.
Exactly.
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I'm sure I have more questions. I never write anything down. I'm just always like, stuff comes to me when we're talking. And
it's more natural that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I actually appreciated that. I was like, I don't have to do like a half-hour podcast prep. And
no. It's supposed to be chill. I just want to pick your brain, really.
Yeah, that's all.
Like, it should just be the title of this podcast should be like McCarter picks people's brain. Like, really just asking like all the random questions that come to my head.
Yes.
Like, yeah. So that's so interesting. I definitely have more, but we'll curb it for now.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Where can people find you if they want to, I don't know. I just always ask that.
Yeah. So that's a great question because I'm terrible with social media. I am mostly, if I'm on social media, on Instagram. So you can tag that in the episode. And other than that, probably at a scientific conference near you.
Yes. And you go to some you spoke at South by Southwest. Yeah. That's incredible. Like,
that was in 2023. That was a really great conference. And that was right before they had passed the natural medicine bill here and also the intoxicating cannabinoid bill. But there was a lot of.
So what did you speak about there?
There I was on a panel that was entitled Accelerating the Science of Cannabis. And so I was joined there by a couple of different product manufacturers. And we really just talked about how we've seen things develop in the industry, what they're doing internally to test their products to ensure they have the efficacy that they claim, that they also have the correct results printed on all of their products, and that they're able to consistently produce products. And just a little bit about testing and analysis and what goes into that. Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. And there was also a lot of panels on psychedelic science. So they had another track incorporating that too. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And then what's something that you're like most proud of that you've like done in the cannabis research?
Oh, this is hard.
Space.
This is really hard. Oh God.
Or just one thing you could highlight. It doesn't have to be your favorite.
Oh, I don't know. Let me think. I would say one of my most proud moments has been really honestly working to develop and build out the cannabis and natural medicine sciences program at the state. And where we are now is a really, I think, critical and exciting point in time. And we have a lot of great minds working in the laboratory and getting hired in. And so that makes me proud when teams are coming together and seem really happy and excited about the work they're doing. And I'm hopeful that we are getting to the point where we have the resources that we need to do the work we want to do. So,
yeah. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question I ask everybody, if you could consume cannabis with anyone, alive or dead, preferably not family, because we won't know who you're talking about, who would it be and why? Oh, and it can also be a fictional character.
Okay. Ooh. Ooh. This is interesting. Okay.
Yes.
I could
because I would want to smoke with the Six Flags guy.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Why is that?
He's just a weirdo.
Yeah, I love it. Just like to get down into it. Let's talk shop. Oh gosh, there's so many people running through my head right now.
I know. We'll just start saying them all.
There's obviously scientific figures running through my mind, but I mean, I just hate saying it because I think it's so cliche, but I would love to smoke weed with either Einstein or Isaac Newton.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but especially Einstein, just because I think he, at the time, he was obviously brilliant and has shaped a lot of what science is today, but was also really unique. And from what I understand, he wasn't quite as roped into the kind of like good old boys club as a lot of the other forefront scientists at the time. And seems unique in that way.
He was just doing his own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The black sheep.
That would be one.
Yeah, those are good ones. That's awesome. That would be incredible.
Mm-hmm. That would be an interesting conversation. That's for sure.
Yes. I wonder if do you think he did smoke weed ever? Because they had hemp was like super common.
It's a great question. I wouldn't doubt it. There was kind of
would be lit.
This bizarre departure where I think through, I don't even know what, well, we do know what, but certain political and social influences, there was this departure from thinking that people who are intelligent could consume drugs of any kind, and that's completely untrue. And a lot of the fields of study that exist now were created by people doing lots of different drugs. So I would not be surprised if Einstein was in that group of people.
I love that.
Yeah. Or maybe he wasn't. I mean, his mind could have just been that far out without any.
It's amazing.
Expansion, but yeah.
So cool. Great answers.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing some knowledge with us. And thanks for doing what you do. It's very important. Yeah, regulation and testing is very important. Mm-hmm. So we can be healthy and safe.
Yes, exactly.
We want to get high, but we want to do it safely, okay?
Exactly. Yes, safety first. Always. Yes. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you as always. And stay high.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.